You have written the affirmations. You have stared at the vision board. You have spoken the goals out loud in the shower, and the bank account has stayed flat for years. The manifestation industry told you it was your vibration, your belief, your alignment. They lied. Not because manifestation is fake, because they sold you a real mechanism wrapped in fake language. The top 1% use the exact same tools every day. They do not pray, they engineer. The science is biological, the mechanism is settled, and in the next 17 minutes you will never look at manifestation the same way again. Picture the last time you really tried to manifest something. You closed your eyes, you imagined the money, you felt the gratitude, you wrote it in the notebook, then you stood up, opened the laptop, checked the same emails, had the same arguments, ate the same lunch, and went to sleep at the same time. Nothing about your day was actually different. You did the ritual. You skipped the rewiring. You think you have been working on your mindset. You have been performing it. There is a brutal difference. The performance feels productive because it triggers emotion. Real rewiring feels boring because it triggers repetition. Most people are addicted to the feeling of trying without ever building the system that would actually move them. The manifestation industry survives off that addiction. They sell you the feeling and call it growth. So you did what most people do. You bought another course. You read another book. You blamed yourself for not believing hard enough. And the bank account stayed flat. Not because you were not trying, because trying was never the missing piece. The missing piece was the mechanism. Nobody told you the mechanism because the mechanism is not what they sell. They sell the feeling. The feeling is the loop. The loop is the business model. And the longer you stay in the loop, the deeper the actual filter gets buried under spiritual debris. But the technique itself is real. Visualization works. Goal scripting works. Repeated mental rehearsal works. Olympic champions use it. The most ruthless operators in tech use it. The greatest closers in professional sport use it. There is too much evidence to dismiss. The technique is not the lie. It does not work because the universe is listening. It works because your brain has a filter, and that filter decides what reality you actually live inside of. The wealthy figured this out a long time ago. They just stopped explaining it out loud. There is a structure inside your brainstem called the Reticular Activating System, the RAS for short. It sits at the base of your brain and operates like a security guard for your conscious mind. Every second of every day, your senses pick up millions of bits of information: sounds, smells, light, pressure, movement, conversations happening behind you, faces in the crowd, numbers on signs, every detail in every direction. Your conscious mind cannot process millions of bits per second. It would shatter. So the RAS filters all of that down to a tiny handful. The handful is what you actually experience as reality. Pause and absorb that. The reality you live inside of, the things you notice, the opportunities you spot, the people you meet, the patterns you recognize, all of it filtered down by a factor most people cannot fathom. The filter is not optional. It is biology. The only question is who set the filter. Most people walk through life with a filter set by accident, by their childhood, by their environment, by the algorithm, by the financial fears they inherited from their parents, by every voice that ever told them to play it safe. That accidental filter decides what they notice, what feels possible, what feels impossible. And then they wonder why their life keeps producing the same financial result year after year. Now here is the first thing the top 1% do that almost nobody else does: brutal specificity. They do not visualize abundance. They do not chant about flow. They do not speak in spiritual generalities. They program the RAS with concrete, measurable, time-stamped outcomes. Not more money. A specific revenue figure by a specific date for a specific offer. Not better health. A specific weight. A specific lift. A specific resting heart rate. The RAS cannot pattern match against vague language. Vague input means vague filter means vague reality. The manifestation industry trains you to dream in fog. The top 1% train themselves to dream in razor lines. If your goal cannot be photographed, it cannot be filtered for. If you cannot describe the room you are sitting in when it is real, you are not programming a filter. You are journaling. Watch the contrast in two real lives. The first person sets a goal called financial freedom. They write it on a sticky note. They feel good for 10 minutes. Then they go back to the same job, the same email inbox, the same bills. 6 months later, financial freedom looks exactly the same as it did when they wrote the note. The RAS had no instruction. The second person sets a goal called $80,000 in monthly recurring revenue from a coaching business by November 1st. Same starting income, same hours in the day. 6 months later, that brain has been pattern matching against $80,000 in monthly recurring revenue every minute it was awake. Conversations look different. Offers look different. Calendar gaps look different. Same world, different filter, different result. Now ask yourself a question you might not want to answer. The goal you set last January, could you photograph it? Could you sit in the room where it was real? Could you describe the smell, the weather, the conversation in your ear when it landed? If the answer is no, your filter has been staring at fog for 11 months. The brain did exactly what it was told to do. Nothing. Pause for a second, because the next two differentiators are the ones that turn this from interesting into installed. And the place where people actually execute on this stuff is the 1% Club at school.com/VYBO. Real frameworks, real accountability, real people doing the work instead of dreaming about it. The link is in the description. Now back to the system. The second thing the top 1% do differently is identity attachment. Most people frame goals as desires. I want $1 million. I want a better body. I want freedom. The brain hears want, and the brain knows that want implies a gap, a distance between you and the thing, a current state of not having. That framing tells the RAS to filter for absence. So absence is what shows up. Empty bank accounts, missed opportunities, reasons it cannot happen yet. Evidence that you are still the person who does not have it. The top 1% skip the desire frame entirely. They build identity statements. I am the kind of person who builds 8-figure businesses. I am the type of operator who closes hard deals. I am the human who executes regardless of feeling. These are not affirmations. They are filter instructions. The brain stops scanning for the gap. It starts scanning for evidence that the identity is already true, and evidence is everywhere, once you are filtering for it. This is why people who shift their identity often see their environment change in weeks. Nothing in the world has changed. Their conscious filter has changed. The signal was always there. They were just not allowed to see it before. Ask yourself something honest. When you set your last big goal, did you write it as a want? Or did you write it as an identity? If the answer is want, you have been training your filter to find lack the entire time. And every minute spent in that frame deepens the pattern. The neural pathway gets stronger, the grooves in your brain get deeper, and undoing that programming takes longer than building it the right way from the start. The third thing the top 1% do differently is environmental engineering. The RAS reinforces patterns through repetition. So the highest performers do not run a single morning visualization session and call it done. They build environments that feed the filter all day long. The goal lives on the wall. The identity statement is the phone wallpaper. The numbers are written on a card that lives in the wallet. The metric is the screensaver. The accountability is in the inbox by 10 in the morning. The peer group is in the corner waiting for the update. Every surface in their world is a vote for the filter they want. Two people with identical goals will produce wildly different results. One reinforces the filter every 2 hours. The other reinforces it once at sunrise and then drowns the rest of the day in distraction. The brain does not work on intention. The brain works on repetition. Whatever you see most often is what you start to look for. Whatever you look for is what you find. Walk through the morning of an operator who actually understands this. The phone wallpaper is the revenue target. The lock screen is the identity statement. The first browser tab is the dashboard with the metric that matters. The first message of the day is to appear in the inner circle reporting progress. The first audio in their ear on the drive is a podcast in the lane they are dominating. By the time most people have finished their first scroll, the operator has cast dozens of votes for the filter they want. By the time most people clock in, The operator is already running on a completely different mental program. Same morning, different filter, different decade. Now picture your own morning. You roll over, you grab the phone before your feet even hit the floor. You open the same app, you scroll the same feed, you read about somebody else's life for 15 minutes before your eyes have fully focused. By the time you stand up, your brain has already been programmed for the day. By somebody else, for their goals, not yours. The shoulders feel a little tighter, the chest feels a little heavier. You did not choose any of it. You inherited it from the algorithm. And then you wonder why opportunity feels distant. The filter was set in the first 10 minutes of consciousness. Everything after was just confirmation. Now consider what most people actually feed their RAS during the day. Negative news on autoplay. Doom scroll feeds engineered to spike fear. Comparison content. Other people's highlight reels. Algorithmic streams designed to hold attention by triggering insecurity. Every minute spent in that environment is a minute spent telling the brain to filter for threat, lack, and inadequacy. Then they wonder why opportunity feels invisible. The opportunity has not disappeared. The filter has been trained to skip past it. The filter is always running. The filter is always being trained. The only question is whether you are training it on purpose or letting the world train it for you. There is no neutral. Every input is a vote for what your future awareness will see. Every scroll, every conversation, every podcast, every 5 minutes of background noise. Your reality tomorrow is being built by your inputs today, and most people are letting strangers on a screen build it for them. Here is the part most people will skip past, and the part the ones who make it never miss. The filter is running right now, as you watch this, picking out which words land and which slip past, deciding which sentences your brain will hold tomorrow and which will vanish by lunch. Two people watching this same video live inside two different versions of it because their filters are different. The filter is invisible from the inside. That is what makes it so dangerous if you leave it on default. The cost of leaving the filter on default is not just stagnation, it compounds year after year. The longer your RAS is set to filter for lack, the better it gets at finding lack. The neural pathways thicken. The pattern strengthens. The filter becomes more automatic. By the time you are 40, 45, 50, your brain has spent decades training itself to see a small life. And now you have to spend years undoing what could have been programmed correctly in months. The dreams do not feel impossible because they are. They feel impossible because your filter has been blocking the evidence that they are possible for that long. Imagine the person you were 10 years ago, the goals you had then, the version of life you thought was coming. Now, look at the gap. That gap is not bad luck. That gap is not the universe failing to deliver. That gap is 10 years of an unprogrammed filter blocking exactly the people, the offers, the openings, and the ideas that would have closed it. The opportunities walked past you. They did not announce themselves. They never do. They do not knock. They wait to be noticed, and you were never set up to notice them. Now run the same calculation forward. Picture the person you could be 10 years from now if your filter stayed exactly the way it is today. Same defaults, same scroll, same vague goals, same identity statements that start with want. Picture that life. The same conversations, the same financial stress, the same quiet evenings wondering why the breakthrough never came. That version is not a possibility. That version is the default. That version is what happens automatically if nothing changes. And for most people, nothing will. Because they will keep treating mindset like magic instead of treating it like engineering. You can keep treating it like magic, or you can treat it like engineering. Magic asks the universe to deliver. Engineering programs the system that delivers. Magic burns time. Engineering compounds advantage. Magic makes you a customer. Engineering makes you the operator. The top 1% do not have better universes. They have better filters. The opportunity is the same. The signal is the same. They simply spent years training their filter to flag what matters. Once that filter is set, it stops looking like luck. It starts looking like inevitability. Most people will keep buying courses on manifestation. They will keep waiting for the universe to deliver. They will keep blaming their vibration when nothing changes. And the years will keep ticking. the filter will keep narrowing. One day they will wake up old and wonder where the abundance went. It was always there. They were just never engineered to see it. That cannot be you. Not after watching this, not after understanding the mechanism. You already know what needs to change. You know your filter has been set by accident. You know your goals have been vague. You know your identity statements still start with the word want. You know your environment is feeding you fear instead of focus. You know which scrolls are votes against the future you say you want. The information is no longer the bottleneck. You are. The question that has been waiting on you for a long time is whether you are the kind of person who actually executes on what you know, or the kind who keeps watching and keeps waiting for one more video to give permission. There is no permission coming. There is only the filter. And it is being trained right now by what you decide to do in the next 10 minutes. The system is real. The mechanism is biological. The window is open. The only thing standing between you and a life that finally matches your potential is whether you decide to engineer the filter today. Not someday. Not when you feel ready. Today. In the next video, I am breaking down the exact morning protocol the top 1% use to load the RAS in under 15 minutes. The 4 inputs, the order, the reason most people do it wrong even when they know the science. Watch that next, because installing the filter is one thing. Loading it daily is what separates the dreamers from the dangerous. Engineer the filter, lock the identity, stack the environment, then watch the world quietly start to deliver what was always there.